Hi guys. So for week 5, discussion question 1, the two videos right off the bat, I want to tell you their names so I can talk about them before I forget that. The first one that I watched was Expeditionary Learning at King Middle School, and that's, I'll go into it, but it's pretty much all subjects. And then the second video that I watched was Mathematics and Learning in the Early Years, and that's specifically grade K through 2nd grade, and that's mostly on math. The first video that I watched is pretty much all subjects, and it's at a middle school, so it's still kind of elementary ed realm. But I'm really excited because both these videos are awesome. The Expeditionary Learning at King Middle School is a little bit longer. It's 30 minutes long, but it goes through in detail what the students are doing in their classroom through all grade levels that they offer at their school. And then the second video that I watched focused on K through 2nd, but it was really, really good what they did with learning menus. So I'm going to focus on the math one first. So it is a primary school, and they did a learning menu style of their math class. And what they do is they have teachers that watch the students' progression on math and their educational growth, and then they put them into like different focus groups, or not focus groups, but they put them into different groups like of learning levels of what they've been shown capable of doing, or what they like to do, or maybe where they're struggling at. So the teachers, there's a group of like teachers and teacher aides that separate the students. And for example, in the video, one teacher aide took some students outside and they worked on ordering of the numbers, and they were outside and they would just figure out what number would go next, and they'd put on a clothespin and they'd hang it up on a clothing line. And then there's another group that was inside that was working on counting on how many stuffed animals they had. And so the ones that were counting the stuffed animals were doing something similar as the ones outside, but it was a little bit different with the different sensory things that they could see. Obviously, they're touching toys, were outside, they were kind of moving around and putting the numbers up. So I thought that was really cool because the students were having fun. They had different ways to go about learning numbers. At some point too, they also have time to have a fake grocery store, and they're buying items, and so they're adding like 1 can plus 2 bags of rice, equals 3, and then somebody could be the cashier. So that was really neat. And I really liked that, what they did for math as far as getting them to remember numbers and adding things and adding and subtracting things on a smaller level like that. The first video that I watched, Expeditionary Learning at King Middle School, I realized towards the middle of watching it, it's more of a tiered menu, but it's in some ways still a learning menu. So I think it's a tiered menu more because all the students have the same assignment. They can just be more creative on how they finish it. Whereas a learning menu is they have different ways to do the assignment, if I'm correct. And so all of the students, for example, like this, I'll go with 7th graders. All the 7th graders were learning about, I want to say it was creatures. They were learning about, like not sea creatures, but they were learning mostly about crabs and like sea creatures and worms and things like that. And they had somebody come in and speak about it. They brought in crabs and they showed them, and they actually got to go out to like their local cove, because they were in Massachusetts, or no, they're in Maine. And so they were going to take the students out to a local cove, and they would search to see if they could find these species that they've been researching about. And it was just really cool because it's this long process, kind of like a project-based learning almost. PBLs, they take a little bit longer, and that's what they would focus on. But I thought it was just really neat because in the video you see these kids out at this cove looking and searching for crabs, and then they find a crab that they like just researched, and I thought that would be really cool if I did that. Another thing they did, all of their 6th graders coming in, they'd have them pick a culture and they'd research it, and throughout the school year they would practice their lines and finding information about that culture, and at the end of the year, or I don't know if it was at the end of the year, like at the middle of the year, they would have a huge play, and every sixth grader would come through, and it was basically as if somebody from that culture was meeting somebody else there, and they were having to explain their cultures, and so they were taking on this full character of somebody who would be in that culture. They were taking on their characteristics and things that they would or wouldn't do. Like some kids were one of them was from France, and he bumped into somebody and he didn't speak English, and he was explaining why he didn't speak good English because he's from France and things like that. One student talked about how he researched Somalia, I want to say, and that's because his family's from Somalia, so he wanted to know more information about it. So it's just really cool how at the end of it all turns out to this big play, and